Hello everyone. It's that time of year, isn't it? October going into November, where everything feels a little bit overwhelming. If you, like me, are feeling like the jobs are just piling up and you just can't get on top of them, as other people are winding down for winter and gearing up for the Christmas holidays, gardeners seem to have a mammoth list of jobs to do. So I would say, first thing you need to do is make a list and prioritise, because winter seems to be much later every year than nowadays. In fact, the last few winters we've had have been really mild and wet and not very cold. So you've got plenty of time to be doing some of them later on in the year. For instance, I have got still to cut all these hedges. If you haven't seen our videos before, we have a lot of native hedgerow that runs the entire width of our garden. But to be honest, they are not going anywhere, and they could be done January, February, just before spring arrives, to be fair, because they're covered in berries. The birds are going to love them, and as long as you get there before the bird mating season starts, it's not an essential task to do right now. A couple of the things that I wouldn't put off too much longer are things like planting your bulbs. If you've bought autumn bulbs or spring flowering bulbs, now would be a good time. You'll be fine until the end of November, to be fair. Unless there's a really hard frost forecast, you've got a little bit of time, don't panic. So bulb planting, garlic planting, onion planting, and some seeds. Get some autumn sown seeds in now, less to do in the springtime, and it gives you an unfair advantage, and I'll explain more later. One of my jobs that I've been putting off is actually finishing this woodland area, because I still haven't done the other side. The plants are here sitting in a little cloche because we had a couple of frosts. They probably even need watering, to be honest. What do you think, Bonnie? Is it time to crack on with some bulb planting? The bulbs now are well and truly coming up, and this is where your unfair advantage to spring kicks in. Planting bulbs in the autumn before it gets cold is a massive advantage, and they actually need it. So there's a thing called vernalisation. Basically, in layman's terms, vernalisation is exposure to cold. Quite a few plants, bulbs, garlic even, things like that, need a 6 to 8 week period of exposure to cold temperatures between 2 and 5 degrees. Obviously, it's still quite mild here at the minute. We are in well above double figures, that are 14 degrees during the day, and we're in the northwest of England, which is not known for its warmth, to be fair. So we've still got time. It's not going to be 2 to 5 degrees for a few more weeks yet, I don't think. There's too much rain around. It's mild and damp mostly. Before the ground really freezes and it makes it harder to work, now is a great time to crack on. Plants, fruit and vegetables that like this kind of thing are things like apples, peaches, tulips, hollyhocks, foxgloves. Vegetables that like it are things like garlic. If you're a newbie to growing garlic, you may not realise that it's actually the cold that breaks that one single clove that you're planting into a multi-cloved bulb. So they need the cold to actually do that, otherwise you just get one big round bulb. Other vegetables are things like chicory, parsley and fennel if you want them to seed. But I decided to get the strawberries in, mainly because the cold is an important factor in the reproductive process of a strawberry. They use the cold to break the dormancy of the buds, and it promotes the flowers for next year's fruit. So, get your strawberries in now too if you've got any, or if you're planning on buying some. Don't wait until the springtime. The same process also applies to many seeds. Only it's not called vernalisation, then it's called cold stratification. It's just a fancy word to saying they need the cold to help them germinate. It breaks their dormancy basically and encourages them. So the most obvious one, that would be something like a poppy. Yeah, so October really is a funny time of year because some of the summer things are still going strong, especially if it's warm and mild like it has been. For instance, I've still got all my dahlias flowering. The cold hasn't knocked them back yet. They've still got buds on. They're doing brilliantly. Many of the gardening channels I follow have still got lots of tomatoes and fruit growing in polytunnels or greenhouses. Roses are still hanging on. And in some cases things have started to flower because it's been so mild that really should be long over. For instance, in my garden I've got this. They should not be putting out new flower stalks. I don't know whether it's because I pruned them back, but I've got a couple of new ones coming. Priorities for me at this time of year are bulb planting, garlic and onion planting, dividing perennials if you've got them in your garden and you want more of them because the ground is still warm, and seed sowing. Now, I sow seed pretty much all year round, to be fair. Getting your autumn seeds in is a great way of reducing your load in the springtime, but also getting the plants to a stage where they've got a good root system, and as soon as the winter is finished and the warmth comes and the light comes, the roots are there to feed and nourish your plants much faster than you just starting to sow a seed in sort of April time. They're already there. They're ready and poised to take up all that nutrient and make much bigger, much bushier plants, and they will flower earlier. So you can do both. If there's some of the seeds say you can do it spring or autumn, do it in both. Don't just sow it all at once, because it will extend the period of the growth and flowering that you have. That's my priority. I cut the grass on Saturday. We have done some greenhouse jobs, which I will show you. And my first job today, because it's not raining, is to gather my pots together and start my tulip planting. And I did earlier in the week tackle a bit of this area here, and I will take you back and show you what I did. So we've just discovered, haven't we, Bonnie? We've just discovered that this vinca, I think that's what it is a beautiful purple colour, and it's spreading all over this raised border, and it self-roots where it touches. So I've just dug a small section up, and I'm going to pinch a bit of it and put it in the woodland for ground cover. It might not look like much, but it's free plants, and they've already made their own roots, and there's plenty of it, so if it dies back I can always steal a little bit more. So I've just popped that in there. The ground is actually quite dry underneath this, so I'm just going to water it in. It's got plenty of roots. I've cut some of the leaves off. I've just emptied out one of the dahlias out of this lovely terracotta pot to use for either my lilies or some of the tulips. This one, I thought it was going over, but no, it's decided it wants to produce a whole load more flowers. So I really need to carry on watering and feeding these. I've been neglecting them somewhat with the greenhouse build. This sage cutting I took from my old garden. I'm going to take that out and put it in over by the greenhouse in that raised stone bed and make a bit of a herb garden there, space for it. So I'm thinking I'm going to put it in here somewhere, but obviously we have got roots left over from this conifer that we cut down. I have also got a rosemary that I want to put in here as well. And I might put the lavenders, the baby lavenders, along the edge here. As you may remember, I'm going to make a little seat just here where all my plants are, and Bonnie's looking. As usual, I come out to do one job, which is planting bulbs, and I end up with another list of jobs that I need to do. It's never ending. So I basically want to empty this pot so that I can use it for my tulips. But now I'm thinking I need to plant lavender all the way around the edge of this wall and make this herb bed. Oh dear goodness me. So I think I might plant this and come back to the lavender and the rosemary at a later time, because I do want to get on with my tulips. As you would imagine, the roots around here are really bad. So there is a big root there, there's a big root back there. But I'm hoping, because herbs don't like good soil and they're relatively small, they'll find their own way down. But I've got nothing to lose here. I didn't buy it, it was a cutting. Okay, that is watered in. Fingers crossed it doesn't die. At the weekend, Doug also got to work on laying some of the slabs in front of the greenhouse and then hanging the doors, so I'll show you that too. As you can see, Doug has laid the slabs in the front of the greenhouse and is currently taking off the sticky tape, but the next job we're going to do is hang the doors. It's a little bit breezy today, so we really do need to get them on. The windows are all in now. We haven't got the self-closers fully installed yet, but we have put the storm latches on, which are these ones here, if you can see those. They just stop the windows from flapping about if it gets really windy. These are the doors, and you didn't see these being built, to be honest, because Doug was doing them while Storm Amy was going on. So they have a little wheel, one on each side of the door and on both doors obviously. They fit into this runner here, which we taped over to stop the sand and any dirt getting into the felt, but it's not that easy to stop it from getting in, to be honest. Obviously there's a brush line inside the groove to try and stop big bits of grit and things getting in. The slabs have been repurposed from up by the old duck pond, and they'll need a bit of a wash, but they're looking good. And we'll probably, if we've got enough, going to do the same just on this inside area here, and then gravel around the edges. And then we've got to build the raised beds. We have marked out on the ground, I don't know whether you can see that. We've made a small island bed in the centre there, U-shaped bed that is going to go all the way around, right up to the edge of the tables basically, but the central one we're going to leave shorter so that you can get access around it. That's it. And then centering the runner at the bottom there. There we go. 2 doors on runners. There we go. Doors are on. Yes, so the next thing is to fit the doorstop brackets to the door posts. When we were building the front face, we had to add these little flat nuts into this runner for later use, and they are what you attach the door stops onto. Fiddly nonsense. There we go, we've got it in, well done. There we go, that stops the door sliding past in both directions. There we go. Wonderful, well done, Doug. So I was just saying to Doug from inside here, when you open the door fully back to the stopper, you can see that the top is kicking out. It's not entirely vertical, whereas the bottom is flush. And the way to adjust that is to adjust these nuts and bolts, which is what the wheels are attached to. So we just need to make a slight adjustment on that so that the doors are hanging straight. We think we've worked out, if you put a spanner behind the thing, you can get a hold of the wheel nut and then twist it from the front.
Can you hold it?
I can hold that, yep. To tighten the roller wheel, and that should in theory adjust the door, which it has a little bit. So we've got one stopper on, and there I will show you closer up so you can see it's got to be in line with this transom so that when it slides closed it's got a rubber stopper to stop it sliding further open and falling off the end or damaging this port at the other end. We also went to a good, well-known DIY store and bought ourselves a water butt because the rains were forecast and I didn't want to miss it. It's been so dry this summer that the more water you can harvest, the better. I got a 300-litre recycled plastic. I know it's plastic and it's ugly, but it's not in plain sight. But to be fair, the last 2 days we've had rain. And it is, in fairness, a big roof. But it is well over half, almost 3/4 full. So I'm thinking I probably need about 6 of them. Obviously can't afford to buy 6 of them because they're not the cheapest things in the world. But I have ordered my animal water troughs that I talked about in the greenhouse building video. If you haven't watched that one, basically my plan is to take 2 animal water drinking troughs and to join them together along here and use the downpipe to collect the water. One of them I'm going to put pond plants in so it looks pretty, and the other I'll use to scoop out with the watering can. Right, so what I think I'm going to do now is go and get my bulbs out of the garage and get planting. I might even move it into the greenhouse because it's looking a bit grey. Another plan I have, moving to a new place is so exciting, but you just got to rein yourself in every now and then just to stop getting carried away, because I never get one thing finished before I'm thinking about the next thing. And the next thing for me is basically to build a small border here. Just a sort of, 3-4 foot wide border, take some grass out and plant some of these things into the ground, which will not only free up some of my pots for said tulips, but I've got things like roses that need to get into bigger pots, and I don't want to spend the money on plant pots when I've got all this ground that I could be using. One of the perennials I want to divide is this grass. Believe it or not, this was a division from a plant at my old house. I split it into 4, and this is bigger than the original plant now. So I could easily take this out of this lovely pot, split that into 3 or 4 plants, and reuse the pot for my tulips. So that's one of the things I'm going to move out. The salvias I grew from seed, they are not very frost hardy, but the pot's really nice. So I'm tempted to take that out and reuse that ceramic pot as well. This daisy I could split, oxide daisy in fact is what it is, but it's a nice round chubby pot that I could use. I don't think tulips would do so well in my garden, to be fair, because we are on a quite deep clay soil, but I've been told by the neighbours that it's prone to being soggy underfoot for most of the winter months. Yeah, so as I say, I'm going to get the tulips out. Sorry, less talking, more doing. So, I've got some mixed daffodils. Some of these are for the woodland, to be fair. They're not all for pots. I have got some fabulous lily bulbs, actually, that do need to go in a pot, though. Oh, dear. That is not a good sign, eh? Things are starting to grow in the bag. They're my crocuses. I really do have to get those in as soon as possible. These are little baby blue iris. I put the picture on the screen for you here. They are beautiful in the small, shallow bowls. Right, so these are also starting to shoot because it's been so warm. But anyway, we have got Black Hero, Tulip Ballerina, which are orange. We've got some Apricot Impression. I'll put the picture on the screen for you. Abu Hassan, Anemone Blanda White Splendor, there to go in the woodland as well. I'm set up. I have plant pots for various sizes. I have some peat-free multi-purpose compost. I have some grit. I've also bought in some horticultural sand and some vermiculite for drainage because bulbs do not like to sit in the wet. So let's start with these blue pearl irises. You need a broken crock or just a bit of gravel. I've very fortunately got some broken pots that were left behind from the previous people. It covers the hole to stop the compost falling through, but it doesn't stop the water draining out. So I'm going to have a little bit of compost, a little bit of sand, a little bit of vermiculite and a bit of grit mixed all together and then put the bulbs in. I'm not scientific about this. I just throw in a bit of everything, mix it all together until it looks about right. Bulbs, of course, have got all the food they really need at this stage to grow in their bulb. The only time you really need to feed bulbs is in the springtime when the flowers have died down and the leaves are left behind to refuel the bulb, if you like. Then you can add a little bit of food. A little bit of vermiculite. A little bit of horticultural sand. This is sort of pea shingly size. It's very small grit, basically any sort of grit. So I'm just going to add a bit into it. But that looks about right to me. It's got some food, doesn't need a lot. It's got lots of drainage. Yeah, I think that will do the trick. Let's now transfer it into our actual bowl. And I'm going to say that that's enough. I'm just judging by eye. So you get your bulb. You don't want them touching, but they can be quite close together. So that's how they're spaced out. They're not touching the sides of the bowl, they're not touching each other. They've got plenty of drainage. Now just to top it up, just making sure there's no lumpy bits. Just tap lightly with your fingers. Now, I haven't filled it right to the top because you do need a watering layer. But what I am going to do is water those in and then put some gravel on the top to stop any weeds taking root and just to make it look nicer. Also, if it rains really hard while they're outdoors, it stops the dirt from splashing up from the pot onto the underside of the leaves, which can look a bit messy. So they don't need masses. The compost, as I say, is already damp. But it's just to settle the soil around the bulbs. And then I'm going to top dress, as they call it, with some gravel. Just enough to hide the compost. But there we go. So that's that. Now then, if you're being really good, you will put a label in it so you know what it is. But this is the only one of these bowls I have, so I don't think I'm going to forget, to be fair. What I'm going to do next is a bulb lasagna, which basically is a much larger pot. Crocks in the bottom, same sort of self-draining compost, but instead of just putting a single row of bulbs around the top, I'm going to plant different sized bulbs at different levels, and they will push past each other. You don't need to worry about that. The lilies, for instance, which I know are summer bulbs, not spring bulbs, but I can plant them in the centre and they will come up and they'll get really quite big, to be fair. But while waiting for that to happen, I can plant the outsides of the pot with different sized spring bulbs. These lilies are the very large white trumpet lilies that you get, which smell divine, and they are just plain white and they just flute out and they're really, really pretty. Lilies, even more so than spring flowering, enjoy a lot of free draining gravel. They do not want to be wet at all. Be careful. As you can see, this is a much bigger bulb. And each of these little sort of what look like leaves, they're actually called scales on a lily bulb. You can actually propagate from these. You can take these off, lay them in some sort of sandy compost and grow bulbs, but they take a long time, which is why they're so expensive. These are the root end, and that's where the flower stalk has been cut off. They need to be planted 15 to 20 centimetres deep. So as you can see, that's plenty. They are frost hardy down to minus 15 degrees. They don't want to be wet though. And also you don't want water getting into the top of these bulbs, because if water gets in there in the autumn time and then it freezes during the winter, it will rot. You could plant them in the garden, you don't need to dig them up. They are frost hardy, as I say, down to minus 15, but they hate the wet. So what I always do, and it always works, you don't need to panic, is lay gravel on the top of this compost, lie them on their side. The root will go down, heads for the light, so even if you planted it to point out sideways, it'll still curl upwards. So a nice thin layer, so that's had a good root on it. There's no point cutting them off, you know, and if only one of these comes up, to be honest, they're magnificent and they smell amazing. So now I'm going to put more gritty compost onto the bulbs and cover them by at least an inch before I start putting the next layer of bulbs in. Just thought I'd show you this as I was heading off to the other greenhouse. This cosmos is the one that was absolutely refusing to flower. We are now in the 3rd week of October. It is smothered. But I'm heading into the other greenhouse mainly because I want to add a little bit of slow released fertiliser to this pot. And while I'm here, I'll show you how my sweet peas are getting on again. Doing amazingly well. Even with a hole in the roof, these things are romping away. So you don't need to feed your tulips and that until they've finished flowering. But what will happen if I put tulips or daffodils or something in here with the lilies is they will absorb all the food from the limited amount of compost and things that I've put in. And the lilies will want a bit of food. They won't need it initially, but if I put a little bit of slow release in, at least there's something in there for the tulips and the daffodils, and then the lilies to sort of draw on as the summer moves on. I am quite happy to leave the leaves of daffodils showing around the base of the lilies. Do not cut them off because they feed the bulb. So if you're a tidy gardener and you don't want to see the leaves with no flowers on, this isn't for you. Just plant spring things together like tulips or daffodils. So same again, and cover those bulbs. So I'm going to put tete-a-tetes on the top, but I think I'm going to put some of these apricot impression tulips around the edges. So that's what a tulip bulb looks like. And I'm going to space them around the lily bulbs. So as you can see, I haven't planted them on top of the lilies, although if I put one in the middle here, it would still come up. The lilies are there, and there, basically. And I've left a gap between each of the tulips because I intend to put the tete-a-tete daffodils slightly higher up in those places. Now, remembering where they are is one thing. It doesn't matter if you don't, they will find their way through, they'll push through and they'll come up and live happily together, so don't panic. And then I'm going to put the tete-a-tetes in. That's your tulip, that's your tete-a-tete daffodil, which in fairness is a very small daffodil. It's a miniature daffodil, it's not a full-sized one. Putting these in first, covering them with about 1 inch of soil, 2.5 centimetres of soil, and then I'm going to put the tete-a-tetes in between the gaps. I'll just wet the pot there. That will remind me that that's where I start spreading them apart. Same as I did with the tulips. There's my mark that I just wet. That's roughly where I want them to be. I'm going to put a couple in the middle. So that's how many I'm going to put in. I'm going to fill up to about here with compost and a layer of gravel. Tuck them away in a sheltered, sunny spot if at all possible, and check on them every now and then. Once the shoots start coming through, you can bring them out onto your patio and keep an eye on them. Make sure they're not too dry and not too wet. They will not need a lot of water. There's only so many bulbs you can watch me plant, I'm sure. It's the same for all of them. And what you combine with what is entirely to your preference. So if you like clashing colours, go for it. The earlier the bulbs are, the better for me, like daffodils, snowdrops, bluebells, tulips, all of those. They just make you feel so much better after the long, dark winter months. And get them planted now while you can. Give them time to put down roots while the weather's warm and damp, and they'll romp away for you next year.